to say good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are located. In the next 10-15 minutes, we are really pleased to present and discuss with you also how innovative solutions and FemTech contribute to improving women's health and menstrual health in particular. On the next slide, together with my colleague Julia, who will be also presenting, we co-founded FemTech Ukraine, about which we will tell you more at the end of the presentation. So wait for that. Just to present myself, my name is Olena, and I'm a senior researcher and FemTech advisor focusing on improving women's health globally, including sexual and reproductive health of underserved population, low resource and humanitarian settings, sexuality education, and also menstrual health. And I will just give a floor to Julia to introduce herself and also guide you to the first part of the presentation, where you will get to know a little bit more about FemTech, its market, and the landscape. And I will take over in the second half. Your floor, Julia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Olena. Hello, dear audience, and greetings from the city of Dnipro, Ukraine. My name is Julia Ivanytska. I have been involved in market analysis and research for over 15 years. For the last 4 years, I have been working with women's health and FemTech. And now I'm a co-founder of the Ukrainian community dedicated to the health and well-being of women and girls. Next slide, please. Today, on the International Menstrual Hygiene Day, we come together to raise awareness about the critically important issue of menstrual health, a subject that still faces significant gaps. Menstrual health is not a privilege, it's a human right. Every month, 1.8 billion people across the world menstruate. An estimated 500 million of these girls, women, transgender men, and non-binary persons are unable to manage their menstrual cycle in a dignified and healthy way. Menstrual health is crucial for gender equality and achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, yet remains overlooked in policy and practice. Next, please. But unfortunately, still millions of people must choose between buying menstrual products and other essentials like food, making period poverty a real global health challenge. Stigma and taboos around menstruation persist, fueling period poverty and limiting participation in education, work, and community life. According to UNICEF, 50% of girls around the world miss school during their period due to lack of access to menstrual hygiene products. In Ukraine, we encounter similar challenges like stereotypes and taboos, but also there are specific ones. Ukrainian society lacks open discussion and normalization of menstruation because it has long been surrounded by stigma, misconceptions, and taboos at an individual, community, and systems level. Till now, there is no comprehensive sexuality education in Ukrainian schools. 58% of children and adolescents did not have conversation about sex and puberty at home. 40% have not been explained about menstruation. Other important challenges include unequal access to menstrual hygiene products, especially in rural, war-affected areas and among refugees. Moreover, the economic situation during wartime reduces the affordability of menstrual products for vulnerable people. Interventions can help overcome these obstacles. I am moving to see how FemTech contributes to improving women's health and advancing gender equality. Next, please. To start, let's look at the definition of FemTech, its categories, and a global market. There are different explanations of what FemTech is. We define FemTech as technology, including products, services, diagnostics, and software addressing health and wellness concerns that solely, disproportionately, or differently affect women, girls, non-binary and trans people, and those assigned female at birth. Today, among FemTech technologies, we see a very wide range of solutions that address women's health needs at every stage of their life. From specific female conditions like menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum and menopause, to chronic cardiovascular and autoimmune conditions and mental health and many others. FemTech is aiming to ensure women have a full, healthy and long life. The term FemTech was coined back in 2016. It quickly became popular in Europe and the United States, consolidated startups and companies that create solutions for women's health needs. Interest of investors and funds has risen, and it made a real revolution. Renowned analytical organizations such as McKinsey, Deloitte, PitchBook started monitoring this industry, publishing financial reports, reviews, trends, and forecasts. Professional communities supporting FemTech are working almost in each country or region in the world. The dynamics of development were impressive, and in 2021, FemTech funding reached its peak value of $2.5 billion. Now it's a $60 billion market, which is expected to more than double in the next decade. And now I'll give the floor to my dear colleague Olena, and she will continue to talk about how FemTech is improving menstrual health, both globally and in Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Julia, for introducing us to the FemTech. I think it's important that we're all on the same page. And on the next slide, we can see some of the areas where FemTech supports menstrual health. I think first example, it's around sustainable and innovative products. And we heard already from Trina and Real Relief how the new technologies, including antibacterial coverage or reusable pads, can contribute to improving menstrual health, and they are quite vital also in humanitarian setting, where disposal of regular sanitary pads and tampons is quite challenging and very often unsafe. So alternative menstrual products really help us to reduce the waste, minimize the environmental impact, and also optimize resource use such as water. Also in the crisis context, this solutions can be actually more also cost effective. When we hear Trina, who was telling that you can use the pad for 3-4 years, so it's really contribute to the cost reduction. And when we look at the global landscape, there's a couple of companies, for example, like Things, that I think they're one of the pioneers also in developing leak-proof period underwear, and also companies like Floss and WeWorld are pioneering, for example, tampons that made from the seaweed, or like a fully flushable pads, offering really an eco-friendly alternatives that help us to really rethink the menstrual care. The second category, or how the FemTech contributes to menstrual health, it's actually through the well-known probably period trackers that many of us are using. It's our monthly calendars. They help us to track our symptoms, help us to also monitor how we feel and how our cycle is. And in addition to this, usually the solutions are also promote body literacy and normalize conversation around menstruation through provision of evidence-based information and the content. And very often also startups working in this field are building also digital health communities, helping really users to talk about menstruation, facilitate discussions, and also challenge the stigma. And improve their hygiene practices. And also this brings us to the third area where FemTech is contributing. It's actually education and outreach. So a lot of initiatives always having, or very often having educational component. And many companies also, in order to have a bigger social impact, also collaborating with different non-profit organizations and initiatives to really expand the access to menstrual health products. And finally, also we heard and we saw in the survey that Xenia presented that, for example, a lot of women associate actually there was a high percentage with menstruation with pain. So it's also very important to find the solutions that could also help to relieve menstrual pain. And there is for example, companies like I think they're having them tampons or products that are including the cannabis to relieve the pain. Or there's also companies like Quinn, for example, who are brought to the market. I think it was the first FDA approved pad. Which you can then send to the laboratory and test your menstrual blood, for example, for different vitamins or glucose levels and any other biomarkers, even for some chronic diseases. So it's also kind of a we always looked at menstrual blood as a waste, but it actually can tell us a lot about our health. So, and on the next slide, let's take a look very briefly how the FemTech looks in Ukraine, actually. So what we did with Yulia, we built an ecosystem map, which includes different actors who are contributing to health tech or some partly to the women's health or femtech. And there's a lot of different accelerators, venture capital startups, and also NGOs initiatives who are actively working in this space. Overall, the femtech in Ukraine is quite an early stage, but momentum is building. And on the next slide, you will see that there is around 35 startups and companies working in Ukraine and dedicating to women's health. So they work in different areas from addressing screening of the breast cancer and pelvic floor health to the fertility and menstrual care. And on the next slide, there will be, this is 12 companies or startups who are actually working in the field of menstrual health. It's actually the group which is more represented from the 35 companies. So menstrual health is quite well covered also in Ukraine. And we have different examples of startups, for example, Peony, who is a startup that creates the flushable, biodegradable, microplastic-free sanitary pads in Ukraine, or Migla, who was the first Ukrainian menstrual cup brand. We also have a lot of companies, startups working or producing reusable pads, menstrual underwear, and sanitary pads. Among them, and we already heard the CEO of the company, it's B&B from the Synthes company, who I think were one of the first ones to bring on the market the period underwear in Ukraine and other products. So it gives us a good feeling that it is this area in Ukraine is developing, and we hope to see even more interesting players coming in the next years. And when you move to the next slide. So it's for us, it's also quite important to mention not only the startups or companies, but also different non-profit initiatives in Ukraine who are working on improving menstrual health. So we heard today from WeWorld and other players how they work in the humanitarian field also to improve access to menstrual products. But there's also some nonprofits that also have innovative solutions. For example, like there is an app which called Gorilla, which is actually a tracking app with the hidden button that women can press in case of the dangerous situations or when they face violence. Or, for example, Solomia, I think it was one of the first chatbots in Ukraine talking about the menstrual cycle. So where the women could get the information from the Telegram. And there's a couple of educational platforms like Berezhe Sebe and Dialogue Proster that are improving the education around the menstrual health. And on the next slide, just to summarize, we believe that FemTech is really a powerful tool to address menstrual health gaps and misconceptions, both globally and in Ukraine. And also it helps to support, and also it's important for us and also for FemTech to support the education, continue the open dialogue and advocacy for the access to menstrual products, and at the same time encouraging really affordable, accessible, and context-adapted solutions in FemTech. And in general, promoting menstrual health is really essential for empowerment and gender equality. And when you move to the next slide, the gender equality in healthcare and is actually our key focus in women's health and femtech Ukraine. So our mission is really to build a strong community that fosters knowledge sharing, raise awareness, and also drives innovation in women's health, both in Ukraine and beyond. And on the next slide, you will see that part of our work that we do is also to provide and maintain the resource page, offering information through different collection of reports, podcasts, and blogs on various women's health topics, including also menstrual health. So if you're interested to get a little bit more familiar with the FemTech, but also with the current status of innovation in women's health, you're more than welcome to take a look. And on the next slide, we just also want to highlight that we really recognize the importance of the data collection and also to closing the women's health data gap. And we heard today about the survey from WeWorld around menstrual health. And there are some topics that Xenia raised, for example, like visits to the gynecologist or access to care. So that's what we are trying also to explore with our survey. So we're looking at the state of women's health in Ukraine. So we will be also very grateful if you could participate in that, and also so we can provide a little bit more analysis or situation of what is happening overall in women's health, and also how women are actually using the innovations in Ukraine to take care of their health. And on the next slide, we will be happy to stay connected with you, and you can reach out at any time to us. And we are open for questions. Thank you very much.